The HazBeanz Show with me, Martin Beanz Warde, the podcast that travels in the back of a van. Hello and welcome to the HazBeanz Show. On this episode, we talk to Bernard O'Hare, who is an advocate for homelessness, for drug rehabilitation, and for mental health issues. Bernard, welcome to the show. How are you keeping?
Not too bad, Martin. Thanks for having me on, mate.
No problem at all. So Bernard, I suppose the best thing to start this episode off is for you to tell us who you are, where you're from, what are you about, what football team do you support? You know, the important stuff, Bernard.
Groundbreaking, eh? My name is Bernard O'Hare. I'm originally from Sligo. I'm 38, I'm originally from Sligo. I'm living in Cork here now for the last 9 years. And if you want to know, I actually am a Leeds United fan.
Oh, jeez.
There's not too many of us left around.
You're doing well this year, though. You got into the Prem.
Well, listen, as long as we don't get relegated, I'd be happy. I can't take any more slagging. But, I live in Cork here now the last 9 years or so. And I suppose the best way to, properly introduce or explain a bit about myself is that I'm a former addict myself, and I actually became homeless there in 2011. I was in Joel Homeless Hospital there in Cork, but most of all I think is that I actually have suffered bad with, at times there with depression and anxiety, you know.
Right, okay, yeah.
So I guess I just like to, for the last number of years, I've chosen to go on a path of, raising awareness and, talking about issues that I've experienced vis-a-vis the addiction, the homelessness and mental health.
Right, I suppose, Bernard, so then, which came first? Was it and again, I'm taking a purely kind of, I suppose, interest in this kind of conversation, but I also only answer with what you're comfortable answering with. I suppose what I'm trying to find out is which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it the mental health issues that came first and the addiction afterwards, or was it vice versa?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I suppose now that I'm a bit older and kind of reflecting, that the mental health side of things was always there. In the sense of, not always there. It only happened after something happened when I was younger, but the anxiety as such, and not being able to call it a proper name or not knowing what it was. Yeah. But I suppose in reality, like, the addiction would have started first.
Right. And talking about. Sorry, go on.
Oh no, I'm just saying I would have first took, I suppose when I say drugs, but I would have took painkillers when I think it was about 12 years of age. Don't ask me even how I got started, because there was never any drugs or anything in the house. It was pure anti-drugs, and then it just literally spiraled in over the years. Even the teenage years was hectic enough,
So it's basically, what started you on the track towards addiction was prescription drugs?
Prescription drugs, yeah. And it was actually confusing as well. I wasn't saying confusing, but it also would have been the first time I started self-harm, and that was about 10, 11 years of age. And then after that, then I kind of just found these things, and I was just like, kept taking loads of them, and it was just like, it wasn't a high buzz, it was just, it stopped what was going on inside, that sort of way.
Yeah, so...
And, yeah.
So with the prescription, and did you receive any kind of help? Did anyone kind of notice, or because that's a very young age to start as well?
Yeah, well, it was, as I said, it was over certain circumstances. Again, legality wise, the stuff going on with it at the moment, the stuff happened. I was a kid, and I never really received help up until about the late 20s. I mean, apart from that, before the late 20s, before I went to rehab, it was always like, if you took drugs, or you're a scumbag, or you're a troublemaker, you're this, you're that. I never even heard of NA or A up until it was in around 2010. I mean, I've had some close calls even at a very young age. I think when I was 16, I ended up drinking a bottle of Bushmills whiskey, and I ended up getting brought to hospital to be pumped out. And then, which was actually, when I'm saying a funny story to that, I actually done that on a Sunday night, right? And I had to go into Utrecht on the Monday morning, and there was a community guard was giving us a talk about the effects of drinking drugs, would you believe?
The irony of it.
Yeah, we were going to Mountjoy on the Wednesday. There was this program back in the 90s called the Cop and On program. And so there was me sitting in the back of the class on the Monday morning dying of a hangover. But about 6 months later, then 7 months later, I ended up taking my first ever ecstasy tablet in a nightclub there in Sligo town. I just gone 17 and I was actually overjoyed that I got in. You know, that sort of way. So I was just like tried to be on the things, but basically I ended up collapsing and I was brought to hospital. So, you know, even in that, like that's only the minor part. Well, I'm saying minor part, but you think even them two experiences alone would have sort of gave me a wake up call, but it actually didn't. It only
well, you were also young.
Heightened the need for it.
You were young also, and even when you mentioned there about the alcohol, like I remember going to teenage discos and we'd sneak up, you know, a nagging of vodka or a flagon if you're feeling, you know, if you're feeling it that night. And like we would have always started off drinking and we'd be plastered going into a teenage disco, and that was the culture. That was the culture of Ireland for me growing up. You know, you got drunk from a young age. My first ever drink was after my confirmation. Is it the confirmation where you make the pledge? Yeah.
I was just going to say, I thought you took the pledge.
Yeah. So basically, the exact same day that I took the pledge, I went to my grandfather's house, and there just happened to be a can of cider left in the fridge, and I took it, and I remember drinking it, and halfway through it, then I felt really bad for drinking it, if you know what I mean. But at the same time, there was no rationale. There was nothing. Do you know, an actual fact, I think what happened that day was, for me, that the whole topic of alcohol had become so ingrained in school conversations because of the upcoming pledge, and because we were told that we had to make this pledge until we were 18, and like there was no two ways about it. You had to take the pledge, and before that I had no interest in alcohol whatsoever. But because of all the conversations about it, I think a part of me was wondering, well, why? What is it about alcohol? Sure, I can see my uncles are drinking it, my aunties are drinking it, all the older cousins are drinking it, my parents might have the odd occasional one. Like, it mustn't be that bad if the adults are doing it. And that got me really, really, really interested in alcohol. Now, that didn't help me. And the only reason I mention this is because it's the early introduction in Irish society to alcohol, and unfortunately in Ireland people don't look at alcohol as a drug, and it is a drug at the end of the day.
It is absolutely. But see, the thing too, Mert, is that people can actually go out there and enjoy a drink and not get violent or not go out and, you know, break the place up or anything else. I just think it affects people in different ways, but I think it also has an extra added effect if you have stuff going on in the head or whatever, you know, inside yourself. And, you know, I just think it sort of affects people in different ways. So just as we were talking there about ingrained in Irish society as well, I remember like years ago back in, this is before, I think it was before 16 anyways. I'm trying to think what age it was exactly, but I actually visited a close relative of mine in a mental hospital. You know, remember back in the day there was no such thing as, I suppose, alcohol or sort of saying rehab and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they'd throw people into mental institutions. And even I remember that day going out visiting, and I was just like, what is going on here? Like, you know, but it didn't click. It didn't, you know, that sort of way. It just didn't sort of register as such. Because when I started drinking, it was just like, oh, look at me, I'm not the scared little kid anymore. I'm going out doing these mad jokes, or I'm doing these dares, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Almost like it gave you a dual personality, a personality that could help you escape from the real you.
Yeah, it was. I would say, maybe it sounds silly to say this, but it was almost like superpowers, because it gave me the ability to do something that I couldn't do when I was sober.
Isn't that what they say about alcohol, though? It reduces your inhibitions. The things that would normally tell you, don't do that because it's bad, and that kind of goes out the window. Like when you're drunk, it's kind of like, well, who said I shouldn't do that? And who the fuck are you to tell me to do whatever I want to do?
I know, yeah. It's like a red flag to a bull sort of thing.
Do you know who I am, do you? You know?
Yeah.
You see it there with the young lads when they get introduced to drink. And from my experience, with certain drinks, I'm not a violent drunk, by the way. I tell you what I do. I make a holy divine show of myself by going around hugging strangers and telling them my life story, and I end up coming home with no money at the end of the night because I'm buying strangers drinks. That's the kind of drunk that I am. But what happens to me after drink is 3 days of anxiety, 3 days of panic attacks and anxiety, and questioning the world. But I think different drinks do different things to different people also. I think it affects them differently. And I don't think there's enough awareness around alcohol in Ireland. And I do think that a large part of that is to do with the fact it's big business in Ireland.
Yeah.
It's big business.
It's ingrained into our DNA as such in Ireland. I mean, even now at the moment with COVID, that is exposed as how much we're a bunch of alcoholics really or enjoy the drink. That people are more concerned with when's the pubs opening than actually what's going on around you. You know, that sort of way. Yeah,
the only part, like for me with the pandemic, the pubs closing, like the only thing I miss on a Saturday night is getting dressed up, getting a lovely fresh haircut, having a few pre-drinks with friends, listening to good music, getting into a taxi, heading on into town with loads of ambitions for the night, and reaching the door and then being told, regulars only. Because that's what my weekends consisted of as a traveller, I can tell you. So I think there's different experiences when it comes to alcohol. But for me, I do. Sure, look, come here. Have you ever been? Have you ever been to the UK? Have you ever been to outside?
No, I've never left Ireland really. Well, apart from going to rehab, over in Italy. But apart from that, I've never went out of Ireland. No.
Did you ever meet people who weren't Irish? And as soon as if you're having a pint with them, it's like they have this image of the Irish drinker, and they expect you to wear it like a badge of honour. And Irish people live up to that, and you'd see it when people go abroad. And the people in the UK are the same way. Like, oh, he's some man for the drink. Oh, he'd drink you under the table, or he'd drink you over and under the table. I tell you, that fella's some fella to drink. And it's always the same way. And people, it's almost like fair play to you. He's well able to drink, as if it's some kind of compliment, you know. And I think that's just the psychology that needs to change, and the mentalities that need to change, I think.
No, absolutely, yeah. That'll all come in time though, but that's just people have to actually be willing to accept what you're saying. We all know what you're saying is true, but they actually have to take it on board and accept it, you know?
Unfortunately as well, we live in Ireland where it tends to be dull, grey, wet, windy, cold, and kind of, you know, boring as well at times. And most of our social lives are centred around places that serve alcohol.
Yeah.
I suppose, whatever about alcohol anyway, you touched on something there a second ago. You said that you went to rehab in Italy. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, what led up to that, and like what was your experience over there? And
yeah, I'll give you a little bit of background as to why I ended up there. I think it was about 26 or 27. No, I was just sorry. I think it was 27, maybe going on 28, because I'm 38 now, and that was 10 years ago. But like, if you said to me at the start of January 2010 that where would you see yourself in 12 months? It wouldn't be in a village in the north of Italy. Do you know, that sort of way? Yeah. Because as I said to you, I never heard of rehab before. I've never heard of NA or AA. Now, as I said to you about the family member before, close person. But anyways, I actually went so downhill so fast in 2010. I was actually, when I sobered up a bit over there, did I realise the damage that was done, you know. How it happened was, actually it was ironic that I was working for a place, for a friend of mine in a takeaway restaurant at the time, and I started going, you know, drinking all night and taking drugs and everything else, and he was got very concerned about me. So he set me up with this fella he said he knows in the town, in Sligo town there, and his name was Aubrey Melvin. He was a part of Social Ground Force. And funny enough, Aubrey actually was from Scotland. When he came to Ireland, my dad, we gave him his first job when my dad just had taxis, you know. Mm-hmm. So basically I started going there, and we were looking at different ways of getting me help. Now, there was a few extenuating circumstances in that I was in a lot of trouble with a lot of, let's call it, bad people, all right? And there was no place for me anymore at home. So there was a place called, I ended up going to a place called Community Shenaklo. Now, they have a place there in Knock, you know, there in Mayo. And I went up there for an experience, but they said to me that when they accepted me that because it's so close to my home that they'd have to send me over to one of the houses. They have houses all over the world, England, Italy, all over the place. So I went to a place called Casaleggio. It was in the north of Italy. It's beside Navarro, beside Milan, basically.
Okay.
And remember now, I'd never been out of Ireland before. Like, this was all new to me, you know what I mean?
So just to recap then, when you went to seek help with the rehab, there was an option there for you to go to rehabilitation in another country. And is this a network? Like, what's the name of the organisation or the? Yeah,
it's called Community Shinaclo. It was started by a nun there in Italy. Yeah, Community Shinaclo. It was started by a nun called Mother Elvira in Italy many, many years ago. And basically, while it was over there, it's not like you don't have to pay for it as such, right? What it is, it's run the whole organisation is run off donations, etc. Now, if your family are in a position to make a donation, then fine, you know. So basically, all I had to do was get a passport and then just go over there, pay for the flight. But just very quickly, I wanted to tell you about something in terms of how bad things got in 2010.
Please do,
I applied for an express passport once I knew that I was going to be accepted, and they take 10 days. And I remember about the second or the third day into waiting, I had a complete meltdown. I ended up going to a doctor, and I told him I'm on the verge of taking my life. I'm under so much pressure, not just from bad people, but just from the whole effects of drinking drugs. I mean, there wasn't, except for heroin, there wasn't anything I don't think I took at one stage or another. I was throwing things into my body there at night I didn't even know the name of. You know, that sort of way. Yeah. And I remember one night, as I said to him, I went to the doctor and he says to me, "Oh, there's a few tablets, go home and take them and have a sleep for yourself." And I was like, "Are you cotton me? Like, I've just told you I'm an addict, I've just told you whatever." And that was grand, but basically that night I ended up trying to take my life. And I remember the next morning when I woke up, I was actually disappointed, to be honest with you. That's, I suppose, is another story. But I got up out of my bed and we lived with my dad at the time in a place called Cramore in Sligo. I was living in a bungalow, so when you open the door, you'd see, you know, the hall. And next thing, my passport was there. And I was gone 3 days later, and I never went home for nearly 10 years. But when I was over there, it was some experience. I mean, you're talking from a man now who got kicked out of 2 secondary schools, a youth ridge. I wasn't allowed into any other schools in the Northwest. I'd say I came up on warning lists all over the place, you know?
Yeah.
And when I went over there, the first month was really tough. I mean, you know, did you ever hear the DTs? You know yourself.
Oh, is that the tremors? Is it the
tremors,
detoxifying?
You know, you'd be sort of hallucinating. I remember I think it was the second night I was there, and I remember I was in bed, next thing, I obviously totally forgot where I was, and I started like, I don't know how it was like an exorcism. I know it sounds funny saying that, but you know what I mean? It was just like, and I woke
it's the same principle, really, when you think about it. You know, you are exercising. It's the same principle. You know, drink is a demon and drugs are a demon, and you are exercising it from your body and from your mind into your soul to a certain extent as well. So it's totally understandable.
This was the first time that ever happened to me, and they were there like, "Well, Bernardo, calm down." I was like, "What the hell? Who are you?" Do you know that sort of way? But basically, when you're over there, as I said, there is a lot of aspect of religion to it.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be saying, you know, happy clappy. Not that I've against anyone that does that. I have a certain amount of faith, but it involves a lot of prayer, but it also involves a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
You know, you could get up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 6:30, go down and say your prayers, and go back up then and get dressed for work. Come down, get your breakfast, and you're out to work for the day. You know, you'd be doing 11, 12 hours a day, and
so structure.
It was just the experience, the culture, the people. Like, some of the people I've met over there was just, as in the advance, like some of the, you know, the lads that would have been in mafias or run with mafias, talking like Eastern European gangs, you know, the Italian ones, and saying to you about there was lads from favelas there in Peru, Brazil, all over the world. And just talking to them and just being a part of that, you know, it was a really eye-opening experience.
It sounds like it's almost like an international refuge for people that are trying to overcome addiction. And I suppose you needed to take the first step of deciding that you actually wanted to, I suppose, overcome your addictions. I think that the first step is to choose it yourself, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, Martin, I'm going to probably sound like a coward here, and I'm going to be honest about this because, you know, when this goes out to people, I know that I'm not the only one out there. I know there's other people who have their own story too, so I think it's important to say it, that I needed to get help, and I did want help, but to be honest with you, it was 50% I wanted to help, and it was 50% I wanted to get away. Do you know what I mean?
Well, but there wouldn't be mutually exclusive totally either. You know, to get away would mean to kind of get away from, I suppose, the temptations, or just to get away from the routine of because you know what it's like when you're living at home, and if you're in a routine, you have the sanctuary of the home, and there's not a lot of motivating factors to change. But for you, you chose. You went to Italy for what, 10 months?
Nearly that. All right, yeah. I was supposed to stay there for 2 years at least.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you look it up yourself, mate, there's maybe it might have changed in the last couple of years, but it's certainly back in 2010 when I joined that. No, you can, as an outsider, I suppose, do a 6-month experience or a 12-month experience, but there was for the normal, suppose, addict or excuse me, whatever the case may be, that it's supposed to be a minimum of 2 years. Like there's people over there who went over to get help and have stayed there all their lives. There's people there 15, 20 plus years.
I suppose, look, the option was there for you. I think that, look, to be honest with you, I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to get the actual spelling of this organisation from you afterwards, and I'll put it up with this episode, because I think people need to know that these organisations exist, and I certainly think that they deserve to get some donations if they're helping people, because at the end of the day, addiction can happen to anyone in any family, regardless of class, creed, colour or religion. It makes no difference. It'll affect you the exact same way.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've met people of all sorts of nationalities, all sorts of skin colour, if you know what I mean, and everybody had the same thing in common, you know. But definitely, no, it'd be great to see them getting it. You see, it's not that I have anything against any other programs, and I hope this comes across right, and please correct me if you think I'm wrong in any way, that I don't, if you were an addict for, say, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, to me sometimes I think people fall back too quickly into it because they do these programs for a month or 2 months and then they go back out. Now, granted, there's not enough wraparound support, but I can say for myself, whether be embarrassed about it, but for people as hardcore or wanting to, do you know what I mean, going on the destructive path that I was on, that a year or 2 years out is better to take a year or 2 years out doing something like that than having a lifetime of misery where one day you just end up, the choice whether you want to live or die is taken away from you. Do you know what I mean?
No, I totally understand that.
By excessive drug use or whatever, and I just think that this place suits people like me. Now, I said to you a few minutes ago about, you know, the school side of things, and the reason why I was saying that was not just because of the work. Like, I worked, there's different parts over there that you can do a bit of construction on the property or so on and so forth, but I used to love working with animals. So, but next thing they started teaching me Italian. You have a thing called, what was the name of it again? It'll come to me in a second, but it's a person who basically translates for you when you first get over there for the first month or two, and sort of helps you understand.
Okay.
And then after about it was for me anyway, I think I got it for about 3 months. A guardian angel, that was what they call it. I know it probably sounds stereotypical, but I got it for about 3 months, and then at the end of the 3 months we were like, Bernard, look, no one's to talk to you. And they said it to the rest of the lads, like, no one's to talk to you if you won't make an effort to speak Italian. And do you want to know, actually very funny, how I actually ended up learning, how I knew I'd be able to learn it, was the lads used to always communicate around me, and I, as you can imagine, for the first 2 or 3 months I was going off my game, like, you know, temper, lashing out and everything else, and the lads used to use this term called Louis Rompidapale, which basically translates into, is he breaking your balls, you know?
Yeah.
And I kept hearing this, and I was like, why are you saying this around me all the time? So I went away and learned it, and then I was just waiting for the next time that they said it. I was like, okay, I got you now, I know what you're saying about me. And one of the lads simply put it, turned around, he was like, one of the Italian lads was like, Bernardo, if you can learn the bad words, you can learn this, you know? And Martin, no joke, man, within a couple of weeks, I was starting to have the basics of Italian, having conversations, and even one time, as I said to you, it's very religious orientated. So we started doing, you know, the rosary.
Yeah.
In Italian and also in Latin, and I got to lead it one day. Now, I made a couple of mistakes, but from a guy who was kicked out all over the place.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say to you? That was the first sort of clue as such that there was hope there, that there was something there. Do you know what I mean?
It was look. You might not believe this, but I had a conversation here half an hour before we started recording this with the sound guy, and we were talking about me learning Portuguese. And the very reason I said the main motivating factor for me was to learn when somebody was saying something bad about me. So, like, look, it's a universal motivator. I think we all want to know where our part is in a conversation. We want to be part of a conversation. So for one, I'll say well done on learning Italian, by the way, and Latin, although they're quite similar. It's a derivative of Latin, isn't it?
They say Latin is a dead language, but to me, I just think it's a beautiful language. When
it's
you learn
beautiful,
the words,
it is.
It just even sounds like, you know what I mean? And it's just something to have there, like, and you never know, someday you might be able to just spice people, like.
And it's so ironic. It's so ironic because you went there to which is quite a religious enough kind of structured place, which is, that can be very helpful because you need to be able to, I think with addiction it helps to have faith in a higher power. It doesn't have to be a god, but something of a higher power to kind of that's from speaking to other addicts who would have said that. But it's quite ironic because the Latin motto for my family, the Warde family, is sub cruce salus, which means salvation under the cross. And Latin is something I have an interest in myself, and I don't think it's dead at all. I think it's a beautiful, poetic type of language. But Jesus, time for a cup of tea on the HazBeanz show. This show has been sponsored by the Furniture Emporium. The Furniture Emporium is located in Oranmore, County Galway. Go check them out on Facebook, Twitter, and on their website. They do a lot of online sales also. Make sure you check out their Instagram for all the cool pictures they have of all the cool and funky furniture. Check out the Furniture Emporium, Oranmore, County Galway. So Bernard, you also have a lot of work around advocacy towards homelessness in Ireland. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, no problem at all. As I said to you now, in 2010 I left, right, and went over to Italy, and there was a lot of issues in terms of getting into trouble before I left, so I'm getting into that right now. But it turns out that I basically had nowhere to go when I came. When I said to them in Italy, that's that I'm leaving or whatever, so on, that there was a lady in the office in the phone in Dublin, and Shanaklo said there's a place in Cork called Montemera. It's a place called in Ladies Bridge. It's just beyond Castlemartyr, and it's another religious type run rehab. But it wouldn't be as, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it wouldn't be as severe. I wouldn't be as strict.
Yeah.
So I stayed there for about 3 months, and then when I wanted to finally just leave and just try to be my own person, or at least try and get on with my life or whatever, I didn't have anywhere to go. And I remember one of the lads that was there at the time says to me there was this place called St. Vincent's Hostel in Anglish Street in Cork, and it's a homeless hostel. So I went over there, and that was my first ever experience of such of homelessness. And I mean, the first time, that would have been 2011, and between 2011 and 2015 I would have been in the hostel at three different occasions.
So about 29 years of age, basically, then.
What's that, sorry?
About 29 years of age when you went in.
Yeah, I would have been going on 29 years of age. I struggled sometimes to remember what age I am. But what do you call it? Yeah, the first time around, it was okay of an experience. I mean, like, there was a lot of older generation. It's not like, and this is not in a bad way, because you'll understand as we're talking, as we're going along, say that within the last 5 years, the demographics of homelessness has dramatically changed to a hell of a lot younger.
Mm-hmm.
But the first time round was a lot of the older lads there, and it was grand. I'll be honest with you, I had a great experience. I can't bad note it the first time round.
The hostel, is it?
Sorry?
The hostel experience, is it?
Yeah, like living in the hostel. Even the conditions were great. The staff was good. There was plenty of food. It was warm. Look, tiny little rooms. Like, to be honest with you, I've been in a jail cell. I've been in police cells that were a lot bigger than it. That sort of.
Yeah.
That can be kind of depressing in itself, But then after the first time, I left, and everything was going well. I was out of there nearly a year and a half, nearly 2 years, and I got a job in a call centre. And next thing, that was going well for a while. I ended up moving out of the system and into a rented house, and then I lost my job because I wasn't very good at it. Like, in a sense that, like, I could talk for Ireland, Jesus, I could talk all day, like, but it was the kind of typing and, you know, stuff like that. Like, I'm saying a bit of dyslexia. I am dyslexic too, and I struggle with sort of typing too fast. So I ended up losing my job, and then, in fairness to the landlord that I had at the time, he gave me a good 5 or 6 weeks in the house rent free. Do you get me?
Okay.
But then he had to, because he knew my story. He knew it was genuine, you know. And he was a good man too, but he just in the end that he had to sort of rent it out, you know.
Yeah.
So I knew that this hostel was available, so I rang them back and says, "Can I?" You know, basically told them the story. They said, "Yeah, look, come down and we'll sort it out again." And the second time I was in there, really opened my eyes. You know, there's even saying the conditions, drugs started becoming more prevalent. And that, like, it was the first time I ever seen heroin or anything like that. You know, I've seen drugs back home, but I never seen heroin. And
was this the same hostel or a different one? Is it?
Sorry? No, the same hostel, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So you were sharing it then with people who had heroin addictions, basically.
Yeah, there was quite a collection of people in there, like, and you know, you have people who were in there for serious sex assaults. There was, you know, people who had been done for rape, child molestation. There's that kind of sitting in there, and from my own experiences in the past, that I didn't want to be there. But
so hang on a second. So you went in with what I call it. I don't know if I'm correct in saying this, but I would see addiction and post addiction. And I know they say that you're always an addict type of thing, but I would see that as a medical thing and definitely a mental health thing. But to mix somebody in a situation that you were in with people with some very serious criminal charges and convictions behind them, obviously, and for people who are current users, obviously there's a glaring issue there straight away.
Oh yeah, like, I mean, a lot of the times as we're talking, we go along, I'll explain to you about being sanctioned. I got sanctioned a number of times for fighting with some of them, and you know, it was horrible, you know. But I felt so sorry for the lads who were you know, serious drug addicts, that they were getting thrown out for days and nights at a time, whereas these other fellas were just given free rein, so to speak. But on the side of the terms of the addiction side of things, that, you know, I've often walked into the bathroom in there, and there's fellas lying flat out on the ground with needles hanging out of their arms, or in the shower. I walk by rooms where there'd be 5 or 6 lads in smoking it off the tin foil, or, you know, again, needles hanging out of their arms. Some lads have even shared it. Do you know, that's sharing the same needle, like, okay. You know. And I'm not going to lie to it, and I do not think myself as any better than anyone for saying this. I just want to say this before I go any further. Like, I was tempted to use heroin one time. It came very close to it, but I just said to myself, whatever about amphetamines, whatever about the tablets, the destruction that they did, I knew it was game over. Do you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But, it was just very, I know monotonous is the right word, but as I said from the second time around, that it was just became so lonely. Like, I broke sobriety more times in that place, you know.
I suppose, in hindsight, is there anything that hostel could have done? Because we're all about finding solutions as well. I like everything that you've gone through. You're able to speak about it now, but surely now, looking back in hindsight, is there any suggestions that, like, how to make an experience like that better for somebody maybe in a similar situation to yourself, going into hostels and seeing that type of thing and being exposed to that type of thing?
Well, I think, you know what, I think things have changed a lot now. I think, you know, there's things in place like the Simon community. You know, I've been a bit outspoken, I'll talk about that for you in a minute, but I've been a bit outspoken through the volunteering side of it on what's been done. But I have to say that the programs that they do run is amazing. You know, days out, sporting activities, art and craft activities, computer courses, college courses, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, they really offer an awful lot, but back then there wasn't a whole lot. But you see, you can offer all the courses you want, Martin, and you can offer all the different sort of schemes. But when you're in, I suppose, the depths of addiction, it's very hard to sort of want to engage with it, you know what I mean? And especially with the surroundings that you're in. You know, I think they kind of need to look at even that aspect I said about a few minutes ago about certain types of people in there. And again, it's called murder. I could talk to you all day about this stuff, but I just think
to be honest with you personally, and I'm speaking from an outsider's perspective, and I'm saying this respectfully for the people that work in those services and people have to go through and use those services. But for me, I find it extremely weird that somebody who's going through a road of recovery is put into the same building and exposed to people who have raped, who have sexually assaulted, who have serious assault charges, who are currently using within the building. I think that's very dangerous, and I also think it's a little bit disrespectful for the journey that the person who's overcome his addiction is going through. I just find that to be very weird.
Yeah,
and is that normal, by the way?
So confusing to me, and I'm 5'5", man. I'm not no ninja or anything like that. I got plenty of beatings in my lifetime, but I used to drive me insane. It used to I was a drug addict anyways, and maybe I used it as an excuse to use. But when I did, there was one night there, for instance, there was a fella that was in there. He was in jail for 10 years for gang rape, right? But he went into the hospital, and it wasn't until 4 years ago I came out about what happened to me when I was a kid. Right, so I was in there worried. At the time, I had already on my mind about leaving my family behind. I had no friends. I knew no one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And watching and getting to know these people used to drive me insane. I went up to the room more times. I'd be, necking bottles of vodka or, naggins of vodka, whatever, and taking tablets, and then go down trying to fight them and everything. Do you know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't. It's not that I wouldn't do it sober, but I really wanted to do it, so I ended up taking this stuff to, try and, that sort of way.
Yeah.
And the domino effect even from that was just insane,
Well, talk to us then a little bit about when you left. So you left that place. That was the second time, and there was a third time. I think you said earlier.
Yeah, the third time. Then, after the second time, I had lost a couple of friends to suicide within the hostel. The second time around, there was two in the space of two very close friends of mine in the space of a couple of weeks. The second time, one was a very good friend of mine. He had serious mobility issues. He was involved in an accident many years ago, and he was on the ground level and I was on the top floor. But I'd go to the shop from every day, or we'd sit down, we'd have a fag, and I do all the talking because he couldn't really speak.
Yeah.
But we just sit there for hours. But ended up, I recently connected with his family, and then knew I was helping him, and it wasn't for pity or thanks, but we connected and we were talking about stuff, and I found out there was underlying issues. But even when he ended his life, I was just devastated. And I only knew him almost nearly 3 months. And then there was another lad one night he didn't take his life, but he actually, there was a 10:30 rule, right? So you had to be in before 10:30, and that was it. If you weren't in by 10:30, you were out for the night or whatever, right? So I remember I didn't go out one night, and I was sitting in the TV room, and next thing I heard my mate Brendan coming down the hall, and fluter he was. He was in his 50s, an absolute gentleman. He was so funny, And I came down, and I was like, "Is he alright?" He was like, blah, 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 blah. You know yourself when you've had a few drinks.
Yeah.
And just put my arm around him. I says, "Big, go up to bed there, boy." I says, and I said, "I'll talk to you in the morning about stuff." And now he was in the room 32. That was the room that I was in the first time around. But anyways, I said goodnight to him, and the next morning, watched as he was being brought out in a body bag. He passed away in his sleep during the night.
Was that from alcohol or?
Yeah,
mixture?
I think it was alcohol. I think he might have had a heart attack or something. You know yourself, mate.
Oh, really?
I don't think he was.
What age was he?
He was in his 50s. I think he was 54, maybe 55, something like that. It was just. Went from putting my arm around him and saying goodnight. I talked in the morning, because I've been in that spot plenty of times where someone put their arm, goodnight, Joe, go to bed, whatever. And then to see that the next morning, I was there going, what the hell, what the fuck?
And tell me this, was there any aftercare for you guys who was around that? Because that's a fairly traumatic experience.
I'll tell you one story about the system now, and this is, look, I have an outspoken issues, and I'm not a troublemaker, mate, like that. I'd like to be taken serious, or a bit more, so we can talk about these issues. But when my friend who took his life passed away, right, he was from a place called Youghal
in Cork.
I always have trouble saying that. But
don't worry, the Cork people have problems saying it as well.
Stop, sure, mixture of Sligo and Cork accent, you wouldn't know what I'm saying half the time. But it's about half an hour, 40 minutes away, right? And again, like that, we'd been told, they came out the back one day, he'd been missing, and they came out the back one day and told us that he was after passing away and what happened. But we then as lads, there was about 4 or 5 of us, we wanted to go up to the funeral. They wouldn't get us a taxi, they wouldn't get us a bus, they wouldn't even give us a lift. If they told us if you want to go there that you have to make your own way, it was $1,000. So I think we eventually got about 20 quid together. We gave one of the lads a car, so he drove us down there. You know what I mean? Well, back then I know there was no such thing as aftercare. I don't care what they say, because I'm not the only one that experienced this. Do you get what I'm trying to say? I think that there should have been more of a human connection with staff and residents, rather than, oh, look at this scumbag, or look at this junkie, like, you know what I mean? The stuff that some of them would have said. So that alone, and that reason, set me off on a path where I am against you. Do you know that sort of way?
See, I can totally listen. I can totally empathise again with an outside perspective, and I suppose I have the privilege of having the outside perspective. But speaking on behalf of that, like on the way I'm thinking about this, like when one of your friends or somebody close to you dies, and they die in situations like that, they die in a hostel, and then you're there with the rest of your friends who are overcoming addictions or still going through stuff, or are already massively traumatized from experiences in life, and then not to receive the human kindness of being able to say a final goodbye, or being given the help to do that, or any support or any kind of counselling afterwards. Like, were you even counselled afterwards around the death of a friend in an environment like that?
No.
So that's crazy.
It became... Yeah, and this is all the truth, mate. There's so many people that passed through that system over the years that they can ask any amount of people what their experiences was, you know, and it did hurt an awful lot. Like, very quickly there, I tell you, I lost a friend there last year just before Christmas, and it was only actually recently his first anniversary, and I loved staying friends with some of the lads that I always call them the old guard, you know, the lads who I would have been there with in the first place, or the first time round. And he had his own bed sit, and I've often called up to them and had a cup of tea, or might have had a beer with them or something, but there was never anything hardcore at like that. Do you get me?
Yeah.
And I remember actually there last year calling up to his house on the Friday night, because his girlfriend was away for the night. I said, you know what, I'm going to go up to himself for the night, up to Trevor's house for a while, and that was grand, and we had a few drinks and that, and we were having a laugh and a joke, and we actually watched my TEDx talk for the first time. He didn't even know I was on the Late Late Show, and he just thought it was amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And the reason why this is ironic, and again, I'm not saying it as a vanity way, but the stuff that I just mentioned or done, he just thought I was bluffing. And if you knew this fella, right, he's even smaller than me, and he was just so funny. And we had such a laugh that night, right? And I spoke every Saturday. Then I call up to him, and I do the football, a few 50-cent bets. We'd sit there, we'd have a laugh, marking them off, whatever. And I rang him the next day, and I kept ringing him. It got to about 1:30. The next thing he rang me, and he goes, "Jesus, Barney, you're hot on my phone." I said, "I know, boy. It's 3 o'clock is approaching." I said, "Carry up, you know." He's like, "Give me an hour," and he says, "and I'll be up." And I was grand. I was hopping his phone for the rest of the day, mate, and I give up how many phone calls I made, text messages, called up, no answer. And then on the Sunday, the same thing all day, couldn't get an answer in. And then Tanya, who runs, we have a group now, I'm off at the moment, I'll explain why in a minute, but I haven't been out in a few months. But on the Sunday night, we call up at about 9:30, and I couldn't get an answer, mate. And I mean, I was throwing stones at the window. I could see his window was open. I was roaring and shouting, and you know, that was grand. I was like, right, we went out and done the street run that night. And I was in town the next morning in Cork City, and I was going down North Main Street in Cork, and next thing I ran into his son, and I was like, I said, "Where's your rifle at all?" I says, "Becker," I says, "you know what I mean?" kind of thing. I was like, he's after going walkabouts on me, and he goes, "Bernard, did no one tell you?" And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Dad is dead." And I was like, "What?"
Jeez.
And he goes, "Yeah, on the Sunday night, actually, about half an hour after I was there, his own son had called up and his friend, because no one had talked to him, or no one had heard from him, and it transpired that on the Saturday he must have had a heart attack or something, and he passed away. And they actually ended up having to kick the door down on the Sunday night. And then about a week later, I got a call from a guard, and I was like, "Oh, you were up at such and such," and I was like, "Yeah, how the hell did you know this?" Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For a split second, mate, I was like, "Are you bugging me, or what's going on?" Like, but it turns out I was the last person to see him alive and speak to him, and you know, and the reason why I ended up having to go to his inquest, actually, and again, it was around this time last year. And the reason why I'm telling you this story is because when you hear of someone who is going through homelessness and going through addiction and things like that, especially through homelessness, people have this view, and I hope this comes out right, mate. It's like discrimination, and you know yourself through being a traveller, or you hear he's a traveller, Jesus, he must be this, he must be that. It's the same with
preconceived notions. That's what it is. Preconceived notions. People have an idea about you before they get to know you.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll give you an example or two, right? Applying for jobs. I applied for college when I was still in the hostel the first time round, and all I ever got was, don't tell me you're homeless, don't tell me you're in the hostel, don't this. I'm like going, hold on a second, I didn't actually murder anyone, didn't rape anyone, didn't molest anyone, right? I'm a raging drug addict, or I'm having problems with my mental health, but why, what, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There was all this stuff, but and then when you, I know it's easy to say because I was one of his best friends, but especially when you have people like Trevor out there who, he protected me so many times over the years in there, you know what I'm saying? Even though he had his own issues. Like, a lot of the lads stuck up for me in there, that sort of way. And people don't see that side of it. And again, that's another reason why I talk out so much about it. But, sorry, no, I'm after going on there, I'd say.
No, it's fine. It's absolutely... Listen, this is what this podcast is about. This podcast is a non-judgmental conversation, and it's all about you having your voice on this platform, and this is what my listeners listen in for, is to hear the raw honesty coming from people like you, or like me, or like my other guests. So don't ever worry about that. You talk until you're finished talking.
And it's not like I'm a troublemaker, because as I said, I'll explain to you about the whole group thing and everything else and in a minute, but I love opportunities like this. I've done podcasts before, as I said, I've had media opportunities, and I didn't get paid for any of it. It's almost liberating in a way to be able to talk about it, and hopefully there is change, because people have preconceptions of someone like that, and I've met people over the years who were doctors, who were nurses, who were accountants. Like, there's one of the lads there who's on the street in Cork at the moment. He's a former accountant from Dublin. And Martin, when I tell you, this fella is super smart. I mean, he is super smart. His problem is the drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So therefore, everyone now in society looks down on him because of what he is at the moment, not what he was before that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And look, it can hit any family. It can hit any family at any time. No matter how privileged you are, no matter what kind of upbringing you've had. Yes, it is far more likelihood that if you came from a social disadvantaged community, or if you came with trauma in your life, or if you had a difficult upbringing, yes, you're far more likely to look to drugs for an escape. That's been researched, it's been shown. But drugs itself will attack anyone that tries the likes of heroin. You are just as likely as somebody else to become addicted, and you're just as likely to end up the same way, which is it's negatively affecting those around you.
Yeah.
That's a given.
There's a bad negative effect in there, right? I mean, even within the hostels, like I've often gone in there with hiding bags, hiding cans in my bag, or down my trousers, or napkins and half bottles of vodka, and you just go up to the room and you're going, excuse me, I'm just like, fuck my life. I'm sitting in a hostel, a homeless hostel. I mean, the room is tiny, and and it's just pure monotonous. That sort of way.
What would be a solution? What would be a solution? Because to be fair, bringing drinks to your room or bringing drugs into the hostel, that's also wrong, and it can't be excused either. Because if you are on the road to recovery, you can't be doing that. But like and that's not looking at the reasons as to why. Like, it's like there's a million reasons why somebody might go to the drink, but obviously, as I'm sure you know yourself, it's still not like it still shouldn't be accepted to get drunk or to get off your head inside a hostel. But what would be the solution? What would be the solution there?
It's hard to really know, man, because when I was in there, they had AA meetings and they had NA meetings, and no one had turned up to it. And there was meetings obviously going in around the city, and there was hardly, if any, homeless people ever. And I mean, when I used to go to it, when I did go to the meetings there, I never seen another person that was homeless in there. It's very hard. You see, I've also went to have, as I said, I have a shame admitting this, about, issues with, depression, anxiety, PTSD. I've had things with self-harm, and I've often went to a counselling meeting, right? And sometimes within the building itself, and you'd almost feel good after it. It's not like it's something that's changed, but at least you didn't have the burden of dealing with it on your own. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I go to the meeting, whatever it be, for half an hour, and I'd feel good coming out of it or whatever. And then, so I'd turn a corner or I'd go into the bathroom, there it is, you'd see, I couldn't even repeat some of the stuff they seen, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's then you're like going, what the hell did I just waste my time for? So, I'm not going to have all of our solutions offhand, but even talking about it, then maybe there's people out there if they're willing to listen, that they'll go, right, they have their thinking caps on and go, right, this is, he said this, let's look into it, and then they could change it, do you know what I mean, or make little changes, but it's very hard in there as such to stay sober because of the amount of the amount of drugs that's in there, you know.
And can I ask, I suppose, a very personal thing now at the moment?
Yeah.
Where are you at in your journey towards overcoming addiction right now?
I'm struggling, mate, to be honest. I'm struggling so much. Said I'm just 38, got by there a few weeks ago. This time last year, our mum was diagnosed with cancer there 2 years ago. She'd been sick throughout her life with different things, like, you know, but you'd have loved her if you met her. Like, she's so funny, like, one of the queens of Sligo. There was a couple of women, and my mum was known as one of them, you know.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry to hear that, by the way.
As I said, yeah, as I said, I left in 2010, and I didn't go home until last year, until I knew that, you know what I mean. So she basically didn't have long left, and she passed away in January. I think it was 15th of January this year, and I suppose with all the problems that I'm having in the last few years, dealing with that personal case at the moment, and that's gone on for years, and between that now, my mum passing away, my friend passing away, my life has just gone downhill, and we're not even going to lie to you, mate, it's not about getting high. Any feeling was better than hurting yourself, or feeling like shit, or feeling like, do you know what, like even crying, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like such a loser at times there, like, and I can't snap out of it. And basically, I was so tempted recently to do it. Like, there was times there where I'd come home at night after, say, work or wherever, and I'd have a nagging of whiskey there, I'd have 8 cans of Heineken or Carlsberg, I'd have powders, I'd have tablets, and do you know what my philosophy was? That if I go and I take this, and I've often rocked out my own, do you know what I mean? I know it sounds really stupid, but sat there by myself doing all this, and that if I pass out and if I don't wake up, I don't wake up. I didn't give a shit, do you know? And that's why I don't take medications now, because I don't trust myself. I'm after them.
So even with all the stuff going on at the moment, you're as they say, clean, like you're off the wagon at the moment.
Yeah, off tablets, no powder, no tablets, no nothing in 5 years. And with all the stuff going on, mate, like that's what I always say about people, like I do my own blogs and my own videos and stuff on my own page, and I always say about the word hope. Trust me, lately I used to be so convinced by it, but now I actually have to say it as in repetition, saying it to myself, because I need to
reaffirm
convince myself. Never mind anybody else, I need to convince myself, because I'm on actually tender hooks with it. You know, and again, it's not about getting high. It was just, you know, with everything going on, mate, I see no sort of hope. And the only thing that ever made me feel, not saying good, at times it was like my best friend and my worst enemy, drugs, or, you know, the drugs. But I just felt like that was the only thing that could help me. But the downside to it is the mental health. My mental health is a hell of a lot worse when I do it or when I'm coming down from it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
Which is a bit of a contradiction, really, because I spent so many years not wanting to be here. And I'm not saying that lightly or to give anyone else ideas or anything like that. I'm saying as a personal experience that talking about it, I think it's important to say it. I am struggling with it. I want to do it, but I really, really don't want to do it. I need to keep fighting. I need to keep going somehow, somewhere. So that's where I'm standing with it at the moment.
It takes incredible strength to have gone, and something that you've brought it up, we've alluded to it a few times in this podcast, and we're not going to go into it because for legal reasons you said you won't, but I think people can kind of grasp that something happened to you when you were a child, and something that's being investigated at the moment, so you can't go into it, but just for the full picture of people listening, you've gone through that, then you've had the depression, anxiety, you've had the addictions, then you lost your mother, you went back to the home house after 10 years, and now you're struggling. And you know what? Is it any feckin' wonder you're struggling? And I think it's normal to struggle. I think the difference is that you're fighting against something that's still trying to claw back at you. And I have to say, and I mean this with sincerity, I genuinely do, that's fucking strength. To be able to continue genuinely. And you might be questioning, thinking to yourself, it's hard, and you talk about hope, but you might, just this one conversation might be giving hope to another young person who's about to embark on those 10, 15 years that you're just talking about. So, and then may have come from a similar beginning as well. So you may not find hope for yourself at the moment, but you're giving hope to so many others at the moment. And you are an advocate and you are a voice. And I've watched the videos, by the way, and I recommend anyone listening to this podcast, and I'm going to put the links in anyway, just to make it easy for people to look. You've done a TEDx talk in Dublin, and you were on the Late Late Show. Like, you've got so many great things out there, and I can see so many great things going forward for you, boy. And that's me in. And I know I'm a comedian, so when I'm being serious like this, I'm being fucking serious. There's so much there ahead of you, lad. There is.
Yeah. It's hard to see it though, because when I was, look, you know what, one of the things I'm struggling at the moment, maybe this is going a bit off, but I think with triggers, like trigger moments, and I used to use any excuse to go back on stuff, or want to go back on stuff. And when I was home, like, I seen a photo of when we were putting the photos together and stuff like that, for memories, videos and stuff like that, around the funerals and things like that. I seen a photo of my mum, when she was going for her treatment in her walker, and my sister's boyfriend pushing her down the corridor in the hospital in Dublin. And you want to see the smile on her face, man. I'll send you the photo of something I made, and you'll just see what I'm on about. Yeah. And I'm not saying this in a bad way, but because he's a hell of a nice guy, and they've treated beautiful kids together. But I seen the smile on his face and her face, and I was like delighted she was so happy. But because of all the domino effect, and because of my mistakes and stuff that was done to me, alright, but my taking responsibility for the stuff that I did, I missed almost 10 years. I know she was super proud of me. She loved when I do the media stuff. She couldn't wait to tell everybody else. You know what I mean? Like,
of course.
My son was on this, my son was on Late Show, and blah, blah, But to me, that should have been me, So it's the guilt from not being there to support her, or not being there to be, you know what I mean? And that's nothing against that lad or anyone else. I was jealous in a way, So that for me was another big trigger. And just talking about that, like I've finished Pieta House now at the moment. I finished the back there in January, but ringing Pieta House, ringing Samaritans, I'm a big advocate of Pieta House, and especially Samaritans, because see the way we're talking now, right? There's been many nights where I couldn't pick up the phone to my friends. I couldn't say it to my family, oh Jesus, I'm feeling down. Like, I'm not saying they were judging me, but my fear was, when I lived in my own thoughts in my own head, I was like, oh, this fucking idiot again now, look what he's at again, or whatever, that sort of way. Yeah. So I think a lot of people think to themselves, shit, I can't speak to a family member, I can't speak to a friend, there's no hope, I might as well go take that overdose, I might as well go and hurt myself. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the people don't realise about services like Samaritans. And I can honestly say, I was going to say, put my hand on my heart, I know you can't see that, but that I have, Samaritan saved me, using Samaritan saved me, talking to on the phone to a stranger, to listening service and things like that, or making contact with your house. Do you know what I mean? Things like that saves me. So that's why I was saying I like or enjoy talking about it, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, listen, they've saved so many people, and Pieta House, like they have done tremendous work. Yeah. And I've lost family members to suicide myself, and every year we do the Darkness into Light. I don't personally do it now. I help to kind of raise the funds, and I put up fundraisers and stuff like that. But they do tremendous work, and it's all, again, donation based. And I think recently they were talking about having to close down certain programs with Pieta House or certain areas. And I hope that doesn't happen. I hope the government gets involved. And I hope they're kept open. But you know what? In the spirit of hope, I hope you realise that you speaking about your issues is not just a voyeurism. It's not just voyeurism for the listener. Like, if and I always say this about my own life, talking about me being, gay, growing up in the travelling community, and how difficult that was. Whenever I speak, if I can speak to one person who may be going through something similar, then that whole conversation was worth it. And in regards to hope, I hope that you continue with your advocacy. I hope that you continue with your own, I suppose, self-fulfillment and to love yourself and to forgive yourself, because guilt is no good either. Your mother, and if you may not be religious, but I do believe that, when loved ones pass on, they do look over you. And I do believe that she was proud as punch, and she's still with you.
Listen, Martin, I totally believe it. As I said, I had a small, minute bit of fate before Italy. When I went to Italy, I think it grew. I think that's there's some areas that didn't work for me, but I know for a fact that was one area that did. And the reason why I'm saying that is, ever since she has passed, I mean, there's been certain nights there, even in the last few weeks and months, and, I just wanted to give up. It was just pressure. I couldn't fucking face it anymore. And it was just, I knew there were certain little things that I was begging her every night. I'd say my prayers, no matter what. And I just said, I hope you're all right. And then I do things, for a few pictures of my friends and stuff that have passed away. I always say that, please, I really need help. I want to give up, but I don't want to give up. And then all of a sudden, mate, I get a phone call from someone, or something that I would have been waiting for months comes through. I recently got a job, and
fair play.
It's in a discount shop. I mean, they're brilliant to work for. They're really nice people. To be honest with you, at times I'm like, I want to quit, because it's just that's the old mind frame. I just want to be in my own little flash and my own cave where no one can hurt me and no one can take it. But I do believe that it was her that was giving me that strength, that sort of way. So yeah, I think if people can get something from that, that's good. If that's what saves you, brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, listen, all I can say to you now is that you're an inspiration, and I hope anyone listening to this will reach out to you. I hope they follow you on social media as well, and I'll put the links in, as I said, because I think you have a voice that needs to get out there, and I think you have a voice that needs to be out there on mainstream media, not just on a podcast like that I have here today. I think you need to be getting out to the masses, because even to be doing talks at schools and stuff like that, to get, prevention is better than kind of trying to find a cure,
I went to, just very quickly, I wanted to tell you, right, I had done, and again, it's not the vanity thing, right, I done the TEDx talk in 2017, then now, the Late Late Show thing was after Storm of Fedia. It was an old boss of mine who opened up his cafe for people to sleep in there at night, you know what I mean, just for that night, and then we were asked to go on, and then from that, I was asked to do nationwide, and I've done things like LinkedIn headquarters in Dublin. I've done a couple of clubs here in Cork, but my biggest asset, the one I'm most proud of at the moment, is a place called the Life Centre in Cork. It's like a Uteridge type place, and it's to young people. And I'm telling you now, when I talk, I especially love talking to young people, because, again, I don't have all the answers, but some of the crazy shit in life has happened to me. And when I stood there for that hour, I was just so liberated. I was so, this is what I wanted to do. Do you know what I'm saying? So, getting that message out there to young people, and within a certain respect now, not going overboard or anything like that, but not sugarcoat things. Because I think the more honest and open you are with people, especially young people, they will listen. I know for a fact they listen, so that's another goal, so you never know. Well,
look, Bernard, I'd love to get you back on the show again in the future. At the moment, unfortunately, because of COVID, we have to do all the interviews on the phone, but I would love to invite you into the camper van for a cup of tea, and to show you some traveller hospitality, and to do maybe an update, maybe after all this madness of the pandemic ends. But in the meantime, you look after yourself, buddy, and remember to really forget about the guilt, forget about all that stuff in the past, look forward to the future, and just think about all the other people that you could be spreading your message to, because today you spread that message to me, and I've learned a lot just listening to you, and I can only imagine how much you'd help somebody who's going through something that you may have gone through. So fair play, and I mean this, fair play to you, genuinely, and I mean that with full sincerity.
No, I appreciate that, buddy.
But thank you so much for joining us on the HazBeanz show. I wish you all the best in the future, and anyone listening, please go check this guy out. I'm going to have the links at the bottom. I'll keep mentioning the links, they're all going to be there. Bernard, you're an absolute gentleman, and fair play to you. You should be proud of yourself. I'm proud to get to know you over the phone, and I'll talk to you again soon.
No bother, bud. Listen, thank you so much for the opportunity, and have a great day, yeah?
No problem at all. Take care, fella. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode of The HazBeanz Show. The HazBeanz Show is available on all platforms. Do check us out on Facebook, which is The HazBeanz Show, or on Twitter, HazBeanz, @HazBeanz. If you can, we would really, really appreciate if you could subscribe to our Patreon page, which is www.patreon.com/The HazBeanz Show. The HazBeanz is spelled TheHazBeanzShow. Thank you so much. The HazBeanz podcast is presented by me, Martin Beanz Warde. On sound and sound engineering is Sture. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time. It's Beanz in a pod, but this pod is travelling.